Welcome to Cup of Coffee with Colliers, Louisiana, our web series where we talk to business and industry leaders in the Gulf South that somehow have an effect on business and on commercial real estate in the market. Today, we're fortunate enough to have Anthony Evatt with us. Anthony is the lead engineer for the Port of New Orleans, or Port Nola. Thank you for joining us, Anthony. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be invited.
So the Port of New Orleans is a unique port, both in Louisiana, really in the world. And so tell us a little bit about what makes the port unique and also what it's like to work there.
The Port of New Orleans is a really dynamic place to work. We are a political subdivision of the state of Louisiana, and we're responsible for the development of infrastructure to support maritime commerce within our three parish jurisdiction, which is Orleans, Jefferson, and St. Bernard parishes. The state's only international container port, as well as the state's only international cruise port. We do host a thriving river cruise industry as well, and substantial break bulk facility portfolio. We own and maintain over $1.5 billion worth of infrastructure. Every day working here is different from the last. It's a very dynamic place to work. It's a pleasure to be involved with the things that we do. Everything we do is different, but it all makes a significant community or economic benefit for the state of Louisiana.
Yeah, let's face it, the reason that the city of New Orleans here is the port, right? 300 years ago, they decided this is the best place. And you guys have this linear port. So it's a little different, the fact that it's linear. It's not just one facility, but also that you own a public railroad, which is unique to that as well. So can you tell me a little bit about how that plays into the port facility there?
Yeah, so having the public belt as part of our infrastructure portfolio really brings benefit to all of our facilities. It allows us to serve our customers better, our tenants better, and just provide a better connection with respect to other state ports, right? We have, through the public belt, access for all of our pieces of infrastructure to 6 Class 1 railroads, which is quite a unique and profitable opportunity.
So a big part of the reason that we're having this conversation today is that there's this huge economic development driver that's coming to the state of Louisiana, which is the Louisiana International Terminal, the new port facility that's going to be built just downriver in New Orleans. You're the lead engineer on the project as well as the lead engineer for the port. So tell us a little bit about the size and the scope of the project. Is it going to be phased? Is it all going to be at one time? How's all that going to work?
Yeah, so LIT is ultimately, from our perspective, it's the answer. It's the future of container shipping for the state of Louisiana. This will be a new container terminal development at River Mile 83, which is in Violet, Louisiana. This new facility will offer no air draft restrictions. So currently our container terminal at Nashville Napoleon Uptown has an air draft restriction with the Crescent City Connection Bridge, as well as air draft, depth draft, vessel draft issues with constant dredging to maintain adequate draft to support the vessel operations. So this new facility will eliminate both of those concerns moving forward. In addition, the site has existing road and rail infrastructure that can support opening the terminal and can support future growth to allow us to grow into the future. One of the biggest factors that's great about the new site is the 100-year level flood protection. That's unparalleled. We've looked at a variety of sites downriver, the Crescent City Connection Bridge, with the goal to eliminate this air draft restriction. And by far, this pilot site exceeds expectations with what it brings to the table with respect to deep water, adequate river frontage to develop 3,000 plus linear foot of berth, flood protection, access to road and rail. Everything that we need is here with respect to available land. We need about 400 acres to build this terminal, but we were able to acquire roughly 1,200 acres in the parish, which gives us the flexibility to, beyond the footprint of the terminal, to be able to offer opportunities for distribution centers and other ancillary development in support of the terminal as we move forward.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's probably undervalued in the marketplace or people don't necessarily understand, and one of the previous guests that we had on the show described New Orleans as probably the most protected coastal city in North America. And I think that's probably accurate now with the new levee system that we have in place. This particular property falls within that levee system. it is protected, and that's a good thing. I think it's going to come out in multiple phases. How do the phases work?
Yeah. So to just touch on your most protected comment, we are building this terminal where we are primarily because of some significant federal investments that have been made in our region. So the development of the HISDRA system to protect New Orleans proper from hurricane storms is a huge asset to us at the Port of New Orleans. And it's allowing us to build this terminal with protection that's unparalleled compared to any other location along the river, as well as the recent deepening of the Mississippi River. That project, also undertaken by the Corps, has allowed us to be able to serve the largest vessels that are on the water today. So with confidence moving forward with these two major investments by the federal government, we're able to, build on the backs of that to improve maritime commerce in our area. We do envision this to be a multi-year construction project. We designed the terminal with a phased approach. Time to market is a critical aspect of this development because we have air draft restrictions and we are currently in the container market today. We are starting to see us losing service, losing opportunity, and we have to stay competitive with other ports in the Gulf. The container business is the UPS truck that comes to your neighborhood, right? You want to make sure your neighborhood can fit that truck, right? If you can't, then potentially you have a problem. And so our neighborhood is the Gulf. Our infrastructure needs to be consistent with our neighboring ports infrastructure. So we need to have the ability to serve the same size vessels that Houston and Mobile can serve so that we can stay in that rotation and continue to attract that business opportunity and be able to serve our population. Because of time to market concerns, we did look at a phased approach. The goal would be to open a single berth facility with about 600,000 TEU capacity as soon as possible. But the goal was to develop an overall plan that met our 50-year growth projections. So we are designing a terminal that will ultimately grow to 2 million TEUs.
Wow.
The terminal footprint at full build out will be 2 million TEUs, but it grows incrementally. Initially, we hope to have the first phase open. We hope to start construction in the summer of 2025. We're working through the final stages of our permitting process with the Corps of Engineers right now. And we're hoping to start construction as soon as that's complete in this summer. Our goal is to have the first berth open as soon as possible. We're shooting for the latter part of 2028. That may be a little overly optimistic, but that's still our goal and what we're working with our construction partners to see if we can make that.
That's great. No, it's going to be a huge boon for our economy. We're really looking forward to it. It's great economic news for South Louisiana, for the entire state and the entire region as a whole. So you mentioned partners. You're talking, in this case, you're talking about construction partners, but let's talk about operational partners. So how is that going to work at the Port of New Orleans or at the new port, container port?
We do have agreements in place to work with 2 terminal investors. Both of them are current tenants at the Nashville terminal. Currently uptown, we have Ports America is stevedoring or managing operations on half of that facility. And New Orleans, NOT, New Orleans Terminal, is managing the other half. And we have developed a partnership with Ports America. And TIL is the investment arm of MSC, who was represented by New Orleans Terminal. They're the largest ocean carrier in the world. And along with Ports America, the largest stevedore in the world, there are 2 primary private partners on this project. And they bring the local knowledge and the wherewithal to deliver cargo volumes well into the future, ensuring the success of this terminal from an operational standpoint and from funding the construction. They understand the importance of this infrastructure. They see the demand here and the potential for this terminal to positively affect their bottom line, and they're positively working with us to make it a reality.
Oh, that's great. So in essence, the Port of New Orleans will own it. These guys will operate within the Port of New Orleans to get the containers off the ships. But it's also my understanding, and you touched on it in your opening comment, that there's other land that's available. There's other but you've got 1,200 acres and you're going to be utilizing 400 to 450 acres for the port itself. What's the plan for the ancillary land there? Is there opportunity for outside investment to come in, maybe lease some land and build their own building for distribution, or a company to put a distribution center on the footprint? Is there opportunity like that within the project?
Yes, absolutely. The roughly 400 acres are slated for the terminal footprint themselves. Then on the opposite side of Judge Perez, there's a 300 to 400 additional acres that is prime for future development for distribution, any kind of logistical infrastructure. That facility, we're planning for that side of the facility to have rail connectivity and road connectivity through in the future with a 40-hour pink connector roadway. We're working with the state to help advance. So we're looking at those things now. None of those plans are moving forward until we have an investor, but there are an additional 200 plus acre site on the other side of the Violet Canal that we have available. Right within the vicinity of the terminal, there's several hundred acres of prime land for future development to support anything related to the logistics of shipping. In addition, we need to relocate a school as part of the project, or we strongly would like to relocate a school. And so we have land to facilitate that, provide opportunity to relocate that school in a more desirable location. Some of this property we own is not really conducive to distribution centers or large scale industrial development, but more community benefits. So we're looking at how we can help with the parish to develop a park. We need to renovate an existing baseball field and playground that's adjacent to the facility that we think could be better served in the community and other properties that we own, the school, and we're open to other community benefits.
Okay, so I guess from what I've read, about 10% of the TEUs are going to go out on rail through the public belt and then hit the 6 Class 1 railroads, and 90% are going to go out basically on the back of trucks. Tell us a little bit about the dedicated roadway that's in plans to be constructed that would help get those trucks out of St. Bernard and keep them off of St. Bernard Highway and off of Judge Perez.
Yeah. The very first meeting that we had with the parish, it was with Guy McGinnis at the beginning of this process. And his concern from that moment was, we're going to need transportation infrastructure. They needed it already. Right? And
right.
So he pointed us to some previous studies they had done and really impressed upon us that a 40-hour pink connector, a third artery, is what the parish needed to absorb this type of development. And we concur, right? Our current operation is heavily truck dependent, and for us to ultimately get to a 2 million TEU capacity, we're going to need additional infrastructure besides the road and rail infrastructure that's there today. And so we had our consultants, AECOM and HDR, take a quick look at the feasibility of a third artery, both from a geometric perspective as well as from if we want to develop this as quickly as possible, what are our options, and can the terminal volumes, truck traffic support this type of investment? Taking on these large projects is quite an endeavor. We're not an enormous organization, right? We're 100% self-funded. We don't have tax millage or any of that to help us. We generate our revenue through the leases that we have and facilities that we have. And so building a $2 billion container terminal is quite a feat for our team and our financial resources. This 40-hour pink connector road is another significant project, $500 million plus. We quickly started, once we proved that there are some feasible alignments and that we believe a P3 perspective on an opportunity to develop this terminal or this ancillary transportation infrastructure was feasible. We started coordinating with DOTD and the Regional Planning Commission to have them help us commission a study through the DOTD's planning process. We were able to raise some funding for that study, and we were able to help with the development of the scope and get that moving with RPC. They're wrapping up a stage 0 feasibility study, looking at not just a third artery, but other important transportation improvements within the St. Bernard Parish that would help not only with the terminal, but also with just the growth that's being observed in the parish since people are starting to come back after Katrina. Their population is continuing to increase every year. So there are already transportation constraints that they deal with every day. Not just a third artery, but intersection improvements, pedestrian and bicycle improvements, things that really improve the quality of life of the parish. This study's going to help the Regional Planning Commission, the BOTD, and us plan for the future as informed as possible. And so this study that RPC is completing now, I think they're planning to have it finished in February. And so we will start to see soon through their public engagement, the options that they've developed for both short-term, midterm, and long-term improvements, and be able to provide additional feedback and then move those to the next stage. We're very excited about working with our partners with the Regional Planning Commission and BOTD to advance this project. It's critical for the Port of New Orleans to have mobility for our trucking components of our operation so that we can ensure our success as well as reduce the impacts.
It's all about time, right? And so this will help save them time. And it's going to be a good thing. It will also provide a tertiary or second or third artery in and out of St. Bernard Parish, because like you said, the roads are linear. There's 2 roads in and 2 roads out. And so it makes it difficult when the infrastructure is strained, and this will be a huge help for them in St. Bernard. Before we go, I have one last question, and this is more related to the rail. So understanding how the rail is going to access this site, there's one line that comes in and then it goes to a switching yard, or how do you get those cars out to those 6 Class 1 railroads and then send them northeast and west?
So I mentioned earlier, we've taken over the public belt. It's been a huge benefit to the port for everything we did. And with this project, the team at the public belt, as well as our design consultants, we've looked at the entire rail network here in the region and looked at what needs to be done to support this development. And so the public belts team is really focused on going out for CRISI grants, improving our existing rail infrastructure, making a few additional connections to improve fluidity on the entire network outside the footprint of LIT. These things are in motion today. And there are still projects slated in the next few years as we develop the terminal to just allow us to move those cars from one Class 1 to another and to and from the terminal with as little impact as possible. Also, the involvement with the belt has given us the insight as we develop the footprint of the terminal itself to fully understand what those rail operations look like and develop a site, a terminal layout that allows us to receive and depart full intermodal trains without those trains leaving the footprint of the site. So when we receive a train, it can completely come into the site, and then a train can be built and then leave the site without it extending out of the site. For instance, when they're building train at the Oliver Yard or any other yard throughout the community, typically the yards aren't big enough to build a train. So they have to pull out of the yard, back in to grab those pieces of the train. And so when they're in and out of their yard, there's typically ancillary impacts to the community. They go across intersections and driveways and they impact the community. So we took a lot of time and effort, and through the understanding with the public belt and rail operations, we were able to design a footprint that allowed us to build those trains inside our footprint, minimizing the impact on the community. We're building infrastructure at the site to eliminate at-grade crossings in the vicinity of the site so that we can preserve the existing fluidity on the roadways at the site. And then we're looking for short-term, mid-term, long-term improvements through the RPC to mitigate some of these future growth. Through the RPC study, 40 RP Connector, they looked at rail volumes from LIT and how to mitigate those. And it turns out that there's a lot of business in the parish that relies on rail. And the port will only represent at full build out, about 30% of that volume. It's not just the new terminal that's dictating this look, but also the recent growth in the parish for ground utilization. So they're looking at the potential for overpasses at Judge Perez and St. Bernard highways. Now, those are not extremely large projects. They are very feasible if we, start programming and identifying those needs now. And those could really improve the mobility of the parish into the future, even with, as I mentioned, with the public belt as our partner. We are able to look at ways we can manage trains and reduce the impacts of the community. It's very beneficial to the design team to have that knowledge and insight.
That's great. Look, as somebody that's come from St. Bernard Parish, I was there the other day for a meeting and was headed to downtown New Orleans, and I was taking St. Claude Avenue and got back up by a train that was building. And so you were there for a while. So to be able to do that within the footprint and not have to clog the roadways, I think is important. It actually adds to the connectivity for the people of St. Bernard Parish. So that's great to hear. Before we go, anything else you wanted to mention?
I think one thing I want to mention is from a cost standpoint, this is a huge project, roughly $2 billion project. We started this journey 5 years ago, at least, and inflation was a challenge, has been a challenge over this period. And today it's no different. And we're working with our construction manager at risk contractor that we've engaged to help us build this terminal to manage the budget, to meet expectations. There's challenges, but we are working through those every day to make this a reality. It's the most important project in our portfolio. Some successes along the way are that we have managed to get an $800 million commitment from our terminal operators to help us fund this project. The Port of New Orleans is committed to funding $500 million of that $1.8 billion project estimate. We were recently very happy to announce we were successful at receiving $300 million infra and mega grant awards from the federal government. And we have to date received $150 million commitment from the state of Louisiana. That brings the total monies that we have available for this project to roughly $1.75 billion. We are still on track to make this a reality, and it's all boots on the ground, hands on deck to do this. So we have had a recent organizational change with our CEO, and we're still very much aligned to make this a reality as our primary priority, not only with our CEO, but our board and the governor as well. We're very committed to making this a reality and doing everything we can. The economic benefits are beyond, if we're not successful, we stand to lose a lot. And so we're going to do everything we can.
But listen, Tony, thank you so much for joining us today. I really do appreciate it. I think it's people that just get up and go to work every day may sometimes underestimate the value of what the Port of New Orleans brings to us and what you specifically do, especially as it relates to the new LIT terminal that's going to be in St. Bernard. And you guys are such a big part of that. I really appreciate everything you do, and I appreciate you joining me today. So thank you.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to talk to you today.
Thanks.